And we are recording. Welcome to session 8 of our Star Wars game, Heart of Darkness. This is the first session that we will be using the Fate rules to play the game, so you'll have to forgive us if we're a little bit sort of slow on this, as we're all sort of getting used to the adjusted characters, etc. Our heroes, Crude, Gribbly and Yatu, are still on the planet of Cols 2, in the hive of gamblers, opportunists and villains that is Coral City. Previously they made the acquaintance of a Quarren crime lord by the name of Barabbas. Yatu had managed to convince Barabbas that they could potentially be a valuable part of his organisation, and he agreed to a brunch meeting with them in his large palatial mansion near the docking bay on Coral City. So we're going to pick up this session next day as they're getting ready to attend this meeting. But before we do, I'm going to ask our players to introduce themselves and say a little bit about their characters. So we'll start first with that plucky Rhodian pilot, Crude Bosmore.
Hell yes, my name's Jason. I'm playing Crude Bosmore, as always. And he is the luckiest pilot this side of the Outer Rim, or wherever the hell they are at the moment. Because, to be honest, the amount of death sticks he smokes, he's not always entirely sure.
Okay, thank you very much. And of course, they are still accompanied by the well-educated Twi'lek, Gribbly Cald.
Indeed, you may call me Ms. Cald. I am, as mentioned, extremely well-educated and from a wealthy family. I recently had a spot of bother, though. I can't say I'm used to consequences, but I was asked to leave the rebellion. It was a bit of an incident. Less said the better. Let's talk about Yatu.
Indeed, and let's move on to our iceworm tattooed Mirilanan wannabe crime boss, Yatu Deng.
I'm sure there's a fair bit of way to go before Yatu is the boss of anything, but what he is dangerously ambitious, and he knows his way around several kinds of tech, likes to make some up himself. He is an outlaw in all the senses of the word, really, and as such he tends to make an impact on those he meets, and it's not always the best kind of impact. He has, I think, a growing list of people who are after him for various shenanigans that we've done.
Okay, I think that's fairly safe to say. I think that sounds like a fairly accurate summation. So we begin the game with the three of you in the streets of Coral City. The neon lights that were flickering around all of the various gambling, drinking, eating establishments, etc., are now all turned off. The sun is rising over the horizon, over these glittering, brilliant lakes that surround this stilt-built city of Coral City. Like most of these settlements on Cols 2, it's built on effectively like an oil rig style platform rising out of this huge world-spanning ocean. As you peer past the buildings, you can see the central landing bay, this open air sort of round expanse of concrete where ships land to bring in tourists, to trade, to take supplies to other cities and to Outer Rim systems beyond this. But beyond that, you can see this glittering, fairly calm-looking lake. Off to the south, you can just about make out, far, far in the distance across the ocean, what appears to be a heavy, pendulous storm front. Dark clouds gathered in the sky. You can just about make out the odd flicker of lightning in these clouds. But like I say, it's many, many miles to the south from Coral City. Where you are at the minute, the sun is streaming down, glinting off the various metallic finishes of these beautiful buildings that have lost a little of their garishness now that the various neon-hued lights have been turned off. And the three of you are stood there. You have a couple of hours before your scheduled brunch meeting with the crime lord Barabbas in his large glass-fronted mansion and place of business. So over to you guys.
Did he say to bring anything or prepare anything beforehand, or are we just turning up to discuss things? I turn to Yatu.
Is this a meeting with brunch? So no need to bring anything other than our best impression, I presume.
It's a good point. We ought to bring a gift.
I also look down at my clothes and think, I should probably get something a bit nicer.
I don't think it matters. You're a Rhodian.
What's that supposed to mean? Hey,
Look, I know that we're sort of jungle dwellers, but you can't talk, Twi'lek.
These are fine clothes. I'm confused by your assertion. That's like, I don't know what that's like. Was it an insult?
Well, put it this way, most Twi'leks are slaves, and they wear slave clothes.
That is not appropriate conversation.
As you're having this inappropriate conversation, you're obviously sort of looking towards Crude as you're talking to him, Gribbly. Over his shoulder, you can see there are a number of traders who have come out of the main buildings, and they seem to be setting up effectively like makeshift pop-up stalls out the front of these buildings for these businesses, sort of along the streets. Effectively, it looks as though like a sort of an open-air market is being set up on one of these main streets of Coral City. It's still fairly early in the morning at the minute, so you can see people dragging crates out, popping up these stalls. And as you're watching, you see a familiar Twi'lek with a sort of magenta skin tone, and you recognise the maitre d' from the casino you were at the previous evening. He appears to be buying some food supply, some street food effectively, from one of the stalls about 50 yards away from where you are.
Oh, another Twi'lek. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to have a civilized conversation. I storm off.
look, Crude. I know she said some stuff, but I think you're cool.
Well, thank you, but even I know that these clothes aren't great. I mean, look, there's even like a rip in these trousers. I should probably go and get something a little bit better. Can you give me a few credits, maybe, please?
Yeah, sure. Let's go. Let's go to the market.
Maybe if I just get a really expensive cologne.
Nah, man. Just no.
Okay,
I shrug my shoulders.
Gribbly, as you're walking over to this market store, you can see Rebo, the magenta-coloured Twi'lek that you recognise as the maitre d' from Kinji's casino that you were at the previous evening, the guy who gave you the free drink tickets, effectively. You can see he's buying some algae rations, etc., and some meat that it's probably best not to look into the provenance of too closely. He's chatting with the market stall owner, a human, haggling a little bit over the price, but it all seems to be fairly good natured. They're just chatting amongst themselves.
Hello again. Was it Rebo? Rebo?
Rebo. Hi, it's good to see you again. How was your evening at the casino? I trust you had a good time.
Oh yes, made some money and everything. That was very nice. Thank you for the free drink ticket. Although I didn't appear to need it for my choice of drink, but never mind. Hey, tell me, you're local around here. This chap called Brabus. What can you tell me about him?
He looks sort of around a little bit furtively as you mention Barabbas, and then he says, it's probably not wise to bandy that name about too much. And as you start sort of talking to him about that, I'm going to ask for the first roll of the game from yourself, Gribbly. So in terms of like trying to persuade him to like out with more information, how are you talking to him? Are you trying to sort of wheedle your way around him? Are you just being friendly with him, etc.?
Oh, I'm just being friendly and making conversation, and yeah.
Okay, so that sounds like it's probably going to be a flair roll. So if you want to roll 4df plus whatever your flair modifier is.
Okay, never mind.
That's fine. It's not a difficult roll. Okay, so he looks at you and he says, well, I can't really tell you much, but like I say, I shouldn't bandy that name about him. Barabbas has got his slimy fingers into almost every piece of action that goes on in Coral City. I doubt there's a piece of cargo that comes in or out of the city that he doesn't at least have a portion of. Although I did hear rumours recently that he was quite concerned that someone had been running an operation on the planet and that they weren't giving him his due cut. But I don't really know the details, I'm afraid. I just heard someone talking about it when they'd had a few too many drinks at Kinji's.
Oh, I imagine they're going to be getting a visit soon, no doubt. I'm actually more interested in the man himself. You see, I've been invited to a brunch, and, well, I wanted to bring a gift to break the ice and make sure I didn't get, parts of my head chopped off. So, but I didn't really know what sort of manner of a man he is, and what kind of a gift would be befitting the situation.
Well, I've never met the man myself, but from what I hear, like I said, I hear a lot of rumours at Kinji's, but from what I hear, he fancies himself as something of a connoisseur. I have heard that, and I don't know how true this rumour is, I have heard that he has a large pool in his mansion, and he pays especially to have water ferried in from his home world, the world that the Quarren and the Mon Calamari share, and he has the water ferried in to go in this pool. It sounds ridiculous to me, but you know how people are when they're in their cups and they're gambling. They talk all manner of ridiculous rubbish.
Wow, that's interesting. Mon Calamari water on an ocean planet.
Indeed, I thought it was a bit odd myself. I presume it's some sort of nostalgia thing. I mean, after all, the Empire has a pretty tight grip on Mon Cal. It's not exactly as though most Quarren and Mon Calamari can just journey home when they feel like it. I wouldn't even know how you could go about getting water from their homeworld.
Well, the Empire has its tendrils everywhere, but let's face it, they are pathetic and horrible things. And sorry, I'm forgetting myself. The Empire is overbearing and negligent in detail. I've no doubt it would be easy to get water from Mon Calamari. It just boggles the mind as to why you'd bring it to an ocean world.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to also offer the first compel of the game. Now, obviously, I'm going into a bit more detail about the system just until we get used to it. So, now you said that you're a high-born person who's used to acting without fear of consequence. Now,
Indeed.
Effectively, I'm going to offer you a fate point to say that your sort of talk about the Empire being horrible, etc. Maybe you're a bit louder than you perhaps you might wisely choose to be. So perhaps someone's overheard you sort of loudly going, "Oh, the Empire, rubbish."
Already added the fate point to my character sheet.
Splendid. So, as you're talking with Rebo, Crude and Yatu, you're walking up as well. And as you're getting a bit closer, you hear Gribbly loudly sort of mocking the Empire effectively as she's talking to Rebo. And you notice sort of a little bit further behind them, behind one of the stalls, what appears to be this cloaked figure with this almost sort of grey elephantine trunk coming out from under a hood on this robe, and he's wearing a set of like goggles over his eyes. You notice him lift out what appears to be a communicator. He says something into the communicator, then he ducks off into the crowd and begins heading away from you.
Does that fellow seem a bit off to you, Crude?
Yeah. Although I have seen people in cloaks before, they tend to not want to be noticed, which is funny because it's broad daylight.
And John, this is the morning, right?
It is indeed the morning.
Okay, so there's So take a look around. There's tourists. There's people like us looking to buy pants.
Yeah,
and then there's this guy.
It's a fairly thin sort of smattering of people, because like I say, it's quite early in the morning. A lot of people are probably either bemoaning their gambling losses from the night before and or sleeping off hangovers. But Crude and Yatu, if you wish, you can make an intellect-based roll to see if what you know about the race of this person, or if you know anything about them.
It's a 2 for me.
Okay, so Crude and Yatu, you're pretty certain that this sort of trunked individual is from a race known as the Kubas. They have a bit of a sort of a shady reputation. They often work as mercenaries and sort of information brokers, often willing to work for whoever pays their way, basically. But because of that, and because several of them are affiliated with the Empire and known to act as spies for the Empire, their race as a whole has acquired this, like I say, shady reputation.
Right. Well, and I stick like a credit stick into Crude's hand, and I say, "Okay, so get yourself some more clothing, and I'll see what this guy is all about."
Okay, have you got your comlink on you?
Yes.
Good. I'll be in touch, and I sort of give a little wave of it before putting it away.
Right. And John, I want to tail this guy.
Okay, so are you just trying to catch up to him, or are you trying to follow him without being spotted?
I'm just gonna like I'm running him down.
Okay, not a problem, in which case it will be opposed haste rolls. So we'll both make a roll. Whoever gets the highest wins, obviously. Okay, so this Kubaz, his cloak flaring behind him, ducks into the crowd, and he's trying to sort of make his way as fast as he can without drawing attention to himself. However, you've obviously been in a number of chases yourself. You're used to ducking through crowds. You can easily outpace him and catch him up should you so wish. So if you wish to run him down, describe how that goes about.
Yeah, so I guess it's just about me being fairly familiar with running away. So I know where he's going, and I cut him off at this like small alleyway entrance, and I sort of like dive in front of him and spread my hands in a gesture of, "Hey."
Okay, you corner him in a sort of dead-end alleyway, effectively forcing him down there. You see him stop as he sort of looks around, realising that he's got nowhere to go but the way he's just come into this alleyway. He turns around and starts to head out, which is when you walk down the alleyway and you're like, hey. He stops. You can see he's sort of like, he holds up his black leather gloved hands in front of himself to show that he's like not holding any weapons. He doesn't say anything though. He sort of like backs away half a step, holding his hands up in front of him.
Okay, well, I'm gonna mimic his gesture. Like I hold open my vest, which has my heavy blaster pistol hanging there, just to show him that I am armed.
He very slowly holds out one of his leather glove hands, and he reaches into a pocket inside his robe. He very slowly, to show that he's not drawing a weapon or anything, he pulls out what looks like a small metallic cylinder, and he holds it against the base of his neck underneath this trunk-like proboscis. and then you hear an obviously metallic and artificial voice emanating from the cylinder saying, "What do you want?"
Well, I saw you looking at my friend crosswise. Don't really appreciate that.
I don't understand what you mean. What is crosswise?
With ill intent.
I have no intent regarding your friend.
Now, I find that hard to believe. So, and John, how big is this thing?
It looks as though it'd if it was standing up straight, it looks as though it'd probably be about sort of 5'4", 5'5", but it's got a slightly sort of hunched gait, so it looks a little bit smaller than it actually would be if it was standing up straight. It walks with its sort of shoulders hunched up.
Right. So I'm going to approach, sort of like, me and you are going to have a talk.
He holds this metal cylinder to his throat again. You see him like press something on the side, and like his voice comes out a little bit louder, and he says, "If you attempt any violence on my person, I will call for the guards."
If there's going to be violence, there's not going to be an attempt. So, therefore, I suggest that you regale me with a tale of why you were looking at my friend.
Okay, at this point, would you like to make a roll to try and persuade him?
Yeah. And let's see.
I would say you could possibly justify force here, since you're obviously being quite threatening.
Yeah, that's probably the best one. Shit.
He's not very good at resisting intimidation. Okay, so as you're saying this, and you're obviously being quite threatening, you see that he doesn't look as though he's armed in any way. He presses the cylinder to his throat and says, "I am a simple seller of information. I was paid to look for someone matching your descriptions and to pass on your location."
Okay. That's fair. Everyone has got to eat. So, who paid you?
I was paid by a bounty hunter known as Zek LaRoe.
Right, so what do they look like? What species are we talking?
I believe they are a chiss. They appear similar to human females, but have blue-coloured skin and red eyes.
Right. How many credits are we talking? What was your fee?
My services do not come cheap.
How much to purchase her location?
Make me an offer, although I must tell you that I do not have exact current location. I simply have a comm frequency that I was to relay information on.
Let's settle for the comm frequency. So, does 500 credits do you good?
Make it 1,000. This is a notorious bounty hunter. If she finds out that I have betrayed her, my life will not be worth a great deal, and I do not risk my life for a paltry 500 credits.
1,000 it is then. And I presume he has a stick, so we can transfer the funds.
Yeah, and just to cover this at this particular point in time, although Fate doesn't have particularly like a money system, I'm just going to assume that at the moment we're just still using credits in the way we were previously, and you guys can keep track of what credits you've got.
Yeah.
That just seems the easiest way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you hand over the 1,000 credits, so cross it off your funds. He takes the credits and he says, "Very well. Do you have a comms device on you?"
I do, and I hold my comlink out.
He takes the comlink off you. He types like a frequency in it, and effectively like saves it under the favorites in the comlink, and then says, "There you go. That is the frequency I was to relay the information on. Now, if you have no further business with me, I have other affairs to attend to."
Very good. Wish you a good day.
"And to you." He nods, sidles around you, giving you quite a wide berth as much as he can in this alleyway, and he wends his way off into the crowd.
Right. So my next bit, which we can elide in favor of transferring the scene to someone else, I'm going to go and possibly scavenge, but if I can't, then buy some electronics equipment, because I want to create a thing that allows me to sort of, I don't know, like echolocate this comms frequency, so that when the frequency or like someone operating on the frequency approaches, I can like, it's like a radar for this thing.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Are you proposing that you're going to use one of your stunts to create that, or are you planning, or do you wish to make a roll to make that?
Yeah, I could, if that's okay with the utility belts, I could pull out some stuff and rig my comms unit to be a radar.
That's fine. I've no problems with you doing that. So you've used your stunt for that. So we'll assume that you're off buying your sort of equipment and you're constructing that. We're going to cut back to Crude. Crude, you've been sort of like buying clothes, etc. in this open air market. Slowly, more and more people have started to filter in the streets as obviously time's getting on and people are starting to move onto the streets, many of them yawning or bemoaning the fact they've lost a lot of credits the night before. There's the occasional person who's like grinning and saying they've won some credits, but the house always wins, so more people have lost than have won.
Okay, so if I see someone, for example, who's really hungover, I just sort of giggle a little bit and then think, speaking of which, I could do with a drink.
Indeed. As you're looking around, you hear this voice coming from a narrow alleyway going, "Psst, hey, you there, Rodian."
I sort of play dumb for a couple of seconds and look all round, like gaze all around in all directions, and then I sort of slowly turn to look sideways on at the alley and see who's trying to get my attention. I'm assuming that it's someone trying to sell me something, like something black markety.
Indeed, you look into the alleyway and you can see what appears to be a scrawny, shaven-headed human. He's got sort of bags under his eyes. He looks a little bit sickly. There's a slightly jaundiced look to his skin. And he's like, "Yeah, you. Hey, come over here."
So I keep my hands in my pockets and as casually as possible try and saunter up to him and say, "What do you want, human?"
As you approach him, you can see he's wearing a sort of sweat-soaked sort of khaki jacket and trousers and a sort of string vest underneath it. He looks quite unhealthy, to be honest. As you get near to him, he's like, hey, you want to buy some aqua?"
Aqua? I thought that I'd gone out of date. I thought it was all about the death sticks nowadays.
He holds open his jacket and you can see that on the inside he's got like a number of sort of pockets, and in each of them is a tiny vial containing a very sort of faintly blue tinted liquid. He's like, "No, this is the finest aqua you can get, harvested fresh the other day. You won't find any better in Coral City."
You might have to explain something to me because I've never taken this before, but what, do you put it in a drink or do you just down it in one?
He lets out a laugh which tails off into like a retching cough, and he's like, no, don't be silly. You don't drink it, you drip it into your eyes.
I immediately sort of put my hand out and shake my head and say, no, I like to enjoy what I take. And I start walking away.
He looks at you and he says, oh, I'll cut you a good deal for your first try. You sure you don't want to indulge?
Is that a compel I hear, John?
It is. It is. Can you hear the sound of the fate points?
Yep. I sort of stop a bit and sigh and think, well, I do. I turn around and say, okay, how much?
Says, first dose, I'll cut you in 50 credits.
I would say that's fair. Okay. First cut.
He basically opens up one of these vials, and you can see that the top of it has like a tiny sort of pipette on it. He squeezes the bulb on the top of it, and a small amount of this faintly tinted blue liquid is sucked up into the pipette. And with slightly sort of shaking hands, he holds the pipette out towards you, and he's like, that's enough for one hit. Like I say, harvested by the Redwater natives. You won't find finer on coals.
That's a pretty damn small pipette. I'm assuming it's powerful.
Oh, that's all you'll need, trust me.
It'll probably be the last, though. Like I said, I enjoy indulging. Sort of putting things, dripping them into my eyes doesn't sound particularly enjoyable.
Oh, don't knock it till you've tried it.
Well, yeah, like I said, I will try it. I'm just saying I'm probably not going to be a valuable customer.
Well, that's all right. We'll see what you think once you've tried it.
Well, hopefully that'll get you some food for the rest of the week. I say as I hand out the 50 credits.
He takes the 50 credits and he says, oh, trust me, I don't have any trouble getting food. People love this stuff, you know, tourists, gamblers, people looking to like pep their night up a bit.
All right, I see what you're saying. Okay, cool. Well, I'll give it a try then. I'll maybe even come back and let you know how I got on.
Oh, yeah, please do. And he sort of like laughs at me and says, I'm all about the customer service.
Yeah, I also laugh with him because obviously I'm sort of being a bit sarcastic with it. I say, all right, well, hopefully you'll get some more customers today.
Oh, you're lucky. I will do. You're lucky you've caught me this early. This stuff just flies off.
Sure. I'm still pretty skeptical about it, but I take it anyway and obviously conceal it on my person. And then...
Be careful you don't hold on to it too long. It doesn't last well. That's why it's so difficult to get hold of and so pricey normally.
How long are we talking in terms of freshness?
If you hold onto it for more than a couple of days, it'll lose its potency. You'll still get a bit of a hit off it, but nothing too much. That's why it's so costly. Like I say, the Redwater natives, they have to like harvest it from the razor squids, and well, it's difficult to get hold of. You know what they're like.
Okay, well, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. And I start thinking to the brunch, and then I think, oh, hopefully we'll do something more recreational afterwards. I say, okay, well, pleasure doing business with you. Didn't catch your name.
Hallis.
All right. Crude.
Nice to meet you.
Well, I better go on. I've got some kind of brunch thing to go to.
Oh, la-di-da.
It is a bit. It's not normally something I do, but I have to get all presented and stuff, you know.
Well, I'm sure if you're going to take a hit of that before your meeting, it'll make the whole thing a lot more interesting.
I was actually thinking the same thing. And I say as I walk off.
He sort of gives you like a little two-fingered salute as you You walk off, and then he slides back into the crowd. So we cut back at the moment to Gribbly. Gribbly, you're still talking to Rebo. He seems entirely affable. He's smiling, chatting away quite happily with you.
I want to try and see if I can find anything at all from Mon Calamari. So this is like a market of sorts, isn't it?
It is indeed. And there's a lot of sort of oddments. There's a lot of sort of stuff designed to appeal to tourists, etc. So if you wish, you can make I'd suggest either focus or flair roll to see if you do manage to find anything.
That's a 2.
Okay, the only thing you manage to find that you think might be from Mon Calamari, you're not entirely sure, but you do find on one of the stalls what appears to be a small stone statue, which looks a bit like it's a quarren. It's about sort of 3 inches tall. It's made out of a sort of green stone with sort of gold flecks in it. The stall owner's like talking to someone else as you approach. He sees you. He's a sort of quite a chubby looking human with a little bit of a goatee beard. He turns towards you and says, "Oh, good morning, miss. How can I help you?"
Ms.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry, Ms. How can I help you?
This statue, where's it from?
Says, well, I believe it's, if I remember correctly, the person I bought it from said it was from one of the moons of Moncal.
Well, moon. It's a bit disappointing. I'll give you 20 credits.
Oh, I certainly couldn't let it go for any less than 40, Ms.
It's from a moon.
Well, yes, it is, but a moon's a home to some people, and look at the craftsmanship on the statue. To craft such an intricate statue on so small a scale takes a great deal of skill, and the stone that it's crafted from is extremely rare, dredged only from the seabeds of the moons of Moncal itself.
30 credits.
I could possibly let it go for 35.
Are we still haggling? I said 30.
I'm sorry, miss. I could possibly go as low as 32, but that'd be my final offer. I couldn't let it go for less than. At which point he smiles and says, "I can see you're a shrewd bargainer. Would you like me to gift wrap it for you?"
Yes.
He takes out effectively like a sort of decorative paper bag, drops the small statue into it, ties it around with a length of cyan ribbon that he finishes with a flourish in a large bow on the top of it, and then holds out the package towards you and says, "I hope you enjoy it, Miz."
Okay, I take it. I immediately open the package.
He smiles and turns to one of the other people and starts bantering with them about some of his other products.
And it is this. I presume then it's still the thing that he hadn't crossed it. So, okay.
It is indeed.
I reassemble it and I'll rejoin the others.
Okay, so the three of you meet up in this street. You've all had time to do your various things. Obviously, Crude, you've bought some clothes. You've also got some of this aqua. Gribbly, you've secured this small statue from the moons of Moncal. And Yatu, as he approaches, is sort of just finished compiling what looks like a load of like circuits and wires together that he appears to have sort of welded and sort of glued to the side of his communicator. And the three of you meet up.
So, find any pants?
Yeah, I did. And I hold up these rather nice looking, the sort of leathery trousers, and they've got like a nice belt buckle to go with them.
Meanwhile, I did something useful. It turns out this Barabbas guy is fond of things from his homeworld, so I got a statue which I believe is from one of the moons, but one can only hope.
Okay. Well,
Are we ready then?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so you all head towards this large sort of business front slash mansion owned by Barabbas. Obviously, you know the way, Yatu, having been there previously. As you arrive, you can see it's a large glass fronted sort of office type building, effectively. As you walk in, it's very nicely decked out. There's pot plants, there's a few fish tanks, etc., dotted about. There's a large semicircular desk with a dark green skinned Twi'lek woman wearing a smart business suit sat behind it. You can see it says appointments desk on like an immaculately calligraphied sign above the desk. And to the right of that is what appears to be a small elevator in a transparent tube.
Gribbly, I think you should be the one to deal with this one.
Very well. Hello, miss. We're here to see Barabbas.
Do you have an appointment? Mr. Barabbas is a very busy man.
Yes.
We've got brunch, actually.
Can I ask your names and I'll see if Mr. Barabbas is ready to receive you?
We are travelling with Yatu Deng.
Very good. And if you'll please wait a moment, and she gestures to effectively like a waiting area where there's some plush furnished seats. She then presses an intercom button next to herself and then says, Mr. Barabbas, I'm sorry to disturb you, but there is a Yatu Deng and party here. Apparently they have a brunch meeting scheduled with yourself. You hear a slightly muffled voice say, yes, send them up in the elevator. At which point she releases the intercom, turns to the three of you and then says, if you'll please use Mr. Barabbas's private elevator, it'll take you directly to his suite. I believe he's in the tub at the moment.
Sweet.
I turn to Yatu and say, does that mean that we get to go in with him, or do we just have to stand there and watch?
Well, I was in there last time, so don't really know.
In a tub? I don't have swimwear.
Yeah, like a hot tub. Ah, well, maybe we don't need swimwear. I don't know. Cool.
Okay, so you guys head over to the private elevator, I'm assuming. You get in it, there's only two buttons, one to make it go up, one to make it go down, effectively. It would seem that this elevator leads specifically to Barabbas's private suite. Are you guys heading straight up there, or...?
I presume so.
Okay, obviously, Yatu, you know the drill. You've been here before. You get in, press the button. There's a shh as the doors slide shut, and then silently and very smoothly this elevator moves up past about 5 floors of this building until it reaches what, based on your judgment from seeing the outside of the building, must be like the sort of penthouse suite at the top of the building. It slides open again with this slight shh sound. You can see into this large palatial suite beyond. In the centre of the room is this giant hot tub, effectively sunk into the floor. You can see there are bubbles coating the surface of it, and reclining in it is the red form of this squid-like figure that obviously, Yatu, you recognise as Barabbas.
Greetings, Mr. Barabbas. We have arrived for brunch, though we would not object to the tub instead. Or brunch in the tub.
Barabbas smiles and says, please, by all means, join me in the tub. I'll have some food brought in for us.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Is there a problem?
She's from the desert, being Twi'lek, and has...
When you say the desert, he's like... Ugh.
Yeah. So she has some reservations regarding submerging oneself into the water. So
No, I love water. I'm not tired for the water. Oh,
It's difficult to read the facial expression of Barabbas, obviously, 'cause he has like these tentacles and these unblinking eyes. But he just sort of turns in your direction. He's like, I don't see your point, young lady.
right. I see. I see. Well, in that case, and I step forward, fully clothed, and get in the hot tub.
Barabbas nods and gestures for the rest of you to join them as well.
I turn again to Yatu and say, well, if you're gonna, then I will. And what he's implying is, are you gonna not wear clothes in there?
yeah, I'm gonna go. I imagine there's probably like a rack of towels. So I grab one of those and bring it to the edge of the tub, and then just get rid of all my clothes, revealing my glorious ice worm tattoos, and I dip in.
Okay, Barabbas entirely doesn't seem to like change his facial expression or anything as you disrobe. He doesn't seem fussed at all as you climb into the tub. However, he does say, "Yes, now you did promise me you'd tell me the full story of that fascinating marking that you wear on your skin, Mr. Dong."
Oh, this one, yeah. So we Crude here and some other people who are no longer with us. Rest their spirits, if you're into that sort of thing. So we were at Ugbat, and a good friend of ours was crash landed on the ice planet, and we were busy rescuing our friend when one of the famous ice worms broke up from under the ground and started attacking us, and we, well, Crude here had some trouble with the locals. They got riled up, and there was a fighter or two
I see.
hassling with our business, so it ended up with me just with a blaster rifle and my fists against an ice worm. So
Then you must indeed be a formidable warrior to have survived against such beasts. I've never been to Ukban myself, ghastly, frozen place that it is, but I've heard tell of those terrible beasts.
that's horrifying. Many prefab factory plants that I've seen were smaller than this beast, but we survived and we got our friend back, which is, after all that matters, isn't it? Friendship.
If you say, I've always been more fond of profit myself, he says, his tentacles sort of writhing a little.
It's one way of
I found
being
that
friendly.
friendship and profit can work very well together. And on that topic, I wonder if it wouldn't be too presumptuous of me to present you a little gift as a token of friendship that might lead to profit.
A gift for me?
Well, yes, it's only something I found locally, but when I saw it, I thought, aren't those from Mon Calamari, one of the moons, I think? And you'll forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but I thought, being from Mon Calamari yourself, you might appreciate it.
He leans forward, looking interested.
And I hand over the wrapping. I hope I'm right. I can't be certain that it is actually from. This water's very cold, isn't it?
If it's a little too cold for you, he snaps his fingers, and a human gentleman wearing a sort of smart three-piece suit walks out, and he says, "Would you mind adjusting the water and turning it up a a few degrees. One of my guests is feeling a little chilled. At which point the butler says, "Yes, of course, Mr. Barabbas. I'll have housekeeping see to it directly." And he walks off into a back room. A few moments later, the water does start to feel a little warmer. Barabbas takes the little statue off you, Gribbly, turns it over in his three-fingered, suckered hand, looks at it and says, "Oh, well, thank you very much for your generous gift, young lady. I've not seen one of these for many years. This is an ancient relic from the time when my people were a good deal more primitive. When we held to more superstitious beliefs, we used to manufacture idols like these. A few artisan creators still make them in the old-fashioned way. I think this is a recent reproduction, but it's still a very nice piece and a very thoughtful gesture by yourself."
Well, thank you. I think my skin's beginning to return to purple. But it's a bit better, thank you.
Oh, you'll get used to it, Gribbly. It's just a bit cooler than you used to.
Everything is cooler than I'm used to.
Meanwhile, this is quite glorious. Say,
Yes,
was that food you were asking about?
Ah, yes, of course. He clicks his fingers again, and the butler reappears. He says, "Please, is there any particular food you would care for? I could have my personal chef make most things. What would you care for? I do pride myself in my hospitality and seeing to my guests' needs."
So, Crew thinks for a moment, and then he feels a bit reminiscent of some Rhodian cuisine, actually. So, he suggests quite a sort of a staple Rhodian food, and asks if that could be brought out.
Yes, I'm not sure we can get it exactly, but I think we can arrange a reasonable facsimile. And for your two friends?
I instinctively just say some posh Twi'lek dish, something probably a little bit too expensive to produce and improbable to get from here.
You sort of detail this expensive food, and quite surprisingly, he doesn't even miss a beat, and he says, "Yes, I'm sure I can arrange that." And yourself, Mr. Deng?
I'm partial to the local eel kebab.
Aha! Yes, I'm quite fond of them myself. Tell me, have you ever tried the local eel stew?
No. What goes in there?
It's essentially squid and eel fried in the ink from the squid itself. It's quite divine.
The razor squid?
Oh, no. Razor squid are far too dangerous. It's the lesser species of squid that hunt the waters around here. The razor squids are far too difficult to manage, and then there's the whole redwater natives to consider. They're a troublesome bunch.
All right. Well, I will trust your word, so let's have that.
Splendid. He gestures to his butler and then says, "Well, you have our orders. You'll have the chef prepare them and bring them in for myself and my guests. I believe I'll have some of the eel stew as well. Yes, I'm trying to watch the waistline a little, but it's an occasion. Why not? I'll treat myself." The butler says, "Yes, of course. I believe it'll take 15 minutes to prepare, Mr. Barabbas." Barabbas turns to the rest of you and says, "Is 15 minutes okay by your schedules? I appreciate you're probably very busy people."
Yeah, it's fine, but some, what do you call them here? Aperitifs would be nice in the meantime.
Ah, certainly. Well, if you can bring us some nibbles to be going on with and then prepare the rest of the food, that would be splendid. At which point the butler nods and says, "Yes, of course, Mr. Barabbas." He steps away. A few minutes later, comes back with a silver tray with some sort of small canapes, bellinis, etc. on it, puts it down by the side of the pool, and then says, "The rest of your food will be ready in approximately 15 minutes, Mr. Barabbas. I'll bring it in as soon as it is." "Yes, very good. Thank you very much." And the butler makes himself scarce.
I put my hands behind my bed and bed. behind my head, and I sort of shuffle down a bit into the tub and say, "Damn, I could totally get used to this."
So, Mr. Barabbas, do you want to get right down into business, or shall we wait until after the food?
No, I'm quite happy to get down to business. But before we do, tell me, what are your connections like, Mr. Deng, in terms of information, shall we say?
Well, I do know a fair bit of interesting characters around the sector.
Well, tell me, have you seen this yet? And he raises one of his hands out of the bubbles of the pool, and you can see he's holding like a waterproof sort of communicator in his hand. He holds it out towards you and says, "This contains an Imperial news broadcast. It's not been released to the public yet. I've been able to get hold of it somewhat in advance. Being a person in my position does have its perks. If you'll watch what's contained on this vid screen, I'm sure you'll probably find it as concerning as I did." And he hands this sort of small vid screen display over to you.
Yeah, so I take it and I scoot close to Gribbly and Crude so that they can see as well, because it's a small screen, so we need to huddle.
His body heat, yes, good.
Okay, you press the button on it. The screen flickers for a few moments. The Imperial symbol appears on it, and then it is replaced by a fairly severe-looking Imperial officer wearing a grey uniform. Both Crude and Yatu, certainly you would recognise that he has the insignia of the Imperial Customs Bureau on his uniform. The Imperial officer says, "Due to the outbreaks of Lakari beetles on several worlds throughout the sector, the ICB has been given emergency powers to cope with the oncoming crisis. Anyone refusing a stop and search demand on their cargo or their vessel will be assumed to be smugglers or worse and will be treated accordingly. We must prevent the outbreak of Lakari beetles and the famine that they threaten. We do this for the safety of the sector and for the good of the public. This has been an Imperial Customs Bureau announcement on behalf of the Empire."
Any excuse to stick their fingers into the cargo holds of decent business people like us.
Indeed, I'm sure you can see how increased Imperial Customs meddling would be concerning for someone in my line of work.
Well, yeah, it would be a massive waste of time for you and for many others.
Indeed.
So is there any sort of special permit that's floating around that we could get a hold of, or?
Not that I've seen as of yet. As I've said, this announcement has not been made public yet. I believe it's going to be released later today. But I anticipate there will be a loud outcry about it. But as I'm sure you're all aware, the outcry of a few freighter captains isn't really going to sway Imperial opinion. I believe personally that they're simply using this Lakari beetle outbreak, so-called, as an excuse, as your young friend says, and he gestures at Gribbly, to increase their presence in the area and to gain a little bit more power for themselves, under the auspices of increasing the public good, of course.
Sounds like the Empire for sure. This is trouble that we did not need.
Indeed, it's trouble that no one needed. After all, one of the few benefits of being in the Outer Rim, and certainly for myself, what has allowed me to amass the considerable fiscal resources I now have at my disposal, is the fact that up until fairly recently, the Imperial presence has been fairly light in this area. But there have been recent rebel attacks on Imperial bases which have poked the hornet's nest, I believe humans say. Recently, apparently, there was some sort of attack on one of the Drydecker plantations on one of the nearby systems. That's got people up in arms. Then there's these Lakari beetles and the food shortages everywhere. People are worried, and the Empire believes it can ride that into having a tighter grip on this sector.
It's all lies, of course. They blame everything on the rebels as scapegoats.
Well, personally, I believe that the increasing conflict between the rebellion and the Empire, I have no strong feelings either way towards either side. However, as the conflict escalates, it is becoming harder and harder for independents such as myself to make ends meet.
Well, usually wars are good for people who own weapons factories. I don't suppose you have one of those.
It's funny you should mention that. Whilst I do not have one myself as of yet, when your Mr. Deng came to speak to me previously, he suggested that you might be interested in taking a greater involvement in my organisation. And when we last met, Mr. Deng, did I not say that I would want some sort of proof of your ability and the value that you could bring to my organisation?
Of course, and we are here to provide.
Splendid, that's what I like to hear. Well, it's strange that your young friend mentions a weapons factory. I have recently received disturbing reports that there is a weapons factory located on Coles itself, manufacturing weapons, and I believe supplying them to the rebellion, which I do not have a problem with. Business is business, that is fine. However, I have received no cut of the profits from this weapons factory, and I have my fingers in most deals that go on here. Now, if someone in my employ were to locate this weapons factory and show them the error of their ways and ensure that they pay me the respect I am due in future, and obviously they would, if they pay me respect, they will of course benefit from my resources and my contacts, then I would be extremely well disposed towards whoever arranged that, if you get my meaning, Mr. Deng.
I do. Even though, as obviously we are aware of this factory, we do not as yet have a direct lead or a contact. Would you perhaps be able to point us in the right direction and save us considerable time in digging up the way towards this factory?
Well, there I believe I may be able to help you, Mr. Deng. I have a person of interest who has occasionally worked for me on a freelance basis. He's in the city of Sunador to the south. I'm not sure if you're aware of it or not. I'm sorry, I don't know how well read up you are on this world. I know you're not originally from here.
Well, to be honest.
City with always storms, yes?
Yes, that's the one.
Is that the one with the razor squids as well?
No, that's Redwater. However, Redwater is near to Sunador. I believe that... I'm sorry if I'm going into old history here, and please forgive me or stop me if you know this already. But when this planet was first being settled, there were many constructions, many of these rigs, such as the one that this great coral city is built on, that was set up, some of which, for various reasons, were not inhabited long term. Most of them were destroyed or collapsed into the sea. However, there are a few derelicts still lying about. I believe that this weapons factory is on one such platform, and I believe it is in the area between Sunador and Redwater. However, I do not have an exact location. But hopefully my contact in Sunador should be able to give you a little more detail. Unfortunately, although I am quite well established here, I'm also quite well known. So it's not really feasible for me to directly get involved in this matter.
Well, I hope that we will be able to help you as a certain outside element.
Splendid. I've loaded the details of the contact into that data pad that I've just passed to you. If you press the green button on the left side of it, it'll take you to the memory storage device and will bring up the details of the contract.
Very good. Very good.
As you're saying that, the butler walks back in and he brings in these platters with all the various foods you've asked for, at which point Barabbas is like, well, I'm sure we can continue talking as we eat. Please, you are my guests. Enjoy yourselves. Help yourselves to the food. And as this food's brought in, guys, you can see that it's all been immaculately prepared. I mean, this is sort of like Michelin star sort of standard food. It's obviously extremely expensive. I mean, this food is like stuff that you guys wouldn't be able to afford, even with your sort of massive amount of credits that you currently have stashed away. Please help yourselves.
Yeah, I don't blink an eye at that and just proceed to eat.
Okay, Gribbly, you took in the Twi'lek delicacy that has been prepared for you is absolutely beautiful. You've probably not tasted finer since you were originally on your family estate, when obviously you had like your own chefs, etc., to prepare such things.
A very good facsimile. Thank you very much. That's brought back fond memories from my youth.
You're most welcome. I will pass your compliments on to my personal chef. I'm sure he'll be most pleased.
I am also nomming at the food.
Okay, so Yatu, as you've presumably like pressed the button on this data device, the picture flickers. You see like the sort of memory storage bit come up. There's a single file in it. You click on it on the screen, and a picture of a quite scratty looking Rhodian wearing a sort of dirty yellow jacket pops up on the data device, and it says in sort of basic underneath it, it says Mernbro, last location, City of Sunador.
Huh. Hey, Crude, look at this. This guy is even worse dressed than you are.
What? Sorry. I'm sort of picking my teeth. Who's that?
So this is our contact.
Indeed, he came to he's something of I suppose, a hacker or a tech specialist, you might say. He came to this world, and in return for certain favours that he did me, I arranged for him to lie low in the city of Sunador. Apparently, he had the consortium. I'm not sure if you're aware of them, the Zan consortium, one of the factions that controls interest in this sector. Apparently, they were hunting him down for some wrong he'd done them. It didn't interest me. He had talents that I needed, and in return for his talents, arranging for him to lie low on coals wasn't too much of an ask.
Very good. I presume that he is still lying low?
Yes, I've told him to keep his head down. One of the things you may or may not know about Sunador is because of the constant electrical storms that surround it, it's very difficult to get a comms signal or a scanner signal in or out of Sunador. So it's very difficult to track people there from the outside. So it seemed like an ideal place to send him. And in return, he occasionally does small jobs for me, including recently looking into this weapons factory.
Very good. All right. I think we will proceed there post haste.
Splendid. I presume you have your own means of conveyance.
We have comlinks.
No, not
No.
comlinks. Conveyance.
Conveyance.
He sort of he looks at you with an almost sort of like sympathetic look. Gribbly is he's like, no, I mean a means of moving yourself to the city of Sunador.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, I suppose we can take our ship or a speeder.
John, is there like a public transport thing, like a monorail or something that runs through the cities? Or
There's not really a monorail that runs between them. However, you do know that there are sort of locals who effectively because the technology is a strange mix of high tech and low tech on this world. There are locals who effectively ride these large sort of manta ray like creatures between the cities, and a lot of them are sort of willing to take on passengers for credits.
Don't we have a growing collection of land speeders and a spaceship?
Well, we do. We we have 3 speeder bikes in the hold.
The unfortunate thing about speeder bikes is they only hover over land.
Okay, well, we have a spaceship.
True.
This is not an issue.
The only thing there is that we landed here specifically to avoid detection, because it's in one of Barabbas's hangars.
Yes, but we've been detected and we're about to fly into a storm city where the communications don't work. Presumably tracking and radar either.
Yes, I would be extremely surprised if anyone could track your ship once you actually landed on Sunador. It's very difficult to calibrate sensors to see through the electrical storms. Not impossible, but you'd have to know what you're doing, and you'd have had to have been to Sunador before.
What a good then. So, Crude, easy on the beverages and whatnot, because you're flying.
I know my limit. It's all good.
Speaking of...
I look at Barabbas with an expression that says, no, he doesn't.
Speaking of knowing your limits, Crude, what's going on with that aqua that you've got tucked away in your pocket?
Well, it's not in my pocket at the moment because I'm not wearing anything, but it would be sort of safely tucked in my heap of clothes wherever I left it, although I would try and leave it as close to the pool as possible in case I wanted to sort of reach around and grab it.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. You can have put your clothes sort of just by the side of the pool where you're sort of sitting, and in fact, as you're sort of leaning back and you're looking at your pile of clothes, you can just see the faint blue sort of sparkling in the light of this pipette of aqua in your inside pocket.
Yeah, well, I've had some food. And I'm thinking I'm kind of exposed here, though, in terms of actually sort of dabbing it in. Think, what the hell am I doing? Unless, for example, Barabbas knows what aqua is.
You're not entirely sure. You
No,
obviously have to ask him about that.
Okay. All right. In that case, I sort of put on a slightly posh accent and say, Barabbas, do you mind if I partake in some aqua since we're here?
His tentacles waver a little, and he says, "No, by all means. You're my guests. Your wishes are paramount. Feel free to enjoy yourself."
Fantastic. And
You're
I
going
get
to drink his water?
No, it's not water.
Well, aqua's another word for hydrogen dioxide. That's water. This, as I understand it, is this the water you ship in from Mon Calamari?
I'm just completely ignoring her, and I'm getting out the pipette.
Okay, so while you're getting that up, Barabbas scoops up a handful of the water and he sort of lets it fall on his red face, and he says, "Indeed, this pool is full of water that I have imported at some great expense from my homeworld. I know it's a little indulgent, but well, I feel it keeps me connected with my homeworld, now unfortunately distant and under the boot heel of the Empire."
Oh, may it regain its glory again. Gosh, I think my lips are going yellow now.
Okay, so Crude, you've busted out this pipette.
Yes, I have. So if Gribby's still talking, I'm just gonna put it straight in. I'm gonna sort of look a bit widen my eyes as much as possible, and then just go drip drip.
Okay, you drip this aqua into your eyes. There's really only enough for like one sort of dose, like a couple of drips in each eye. As you do, the rest of you notice that Crude's eyes, they go like a slightly sort of, they go from the black colour that they normally are to like a very sort of pale blue, almost like cyan colour. And as you drip it in, you get this feeling of euphoria, Crude. And everything around you goes sort of like slightly sort of hazy and wibbly as though you're looking at everything underwater. Everything seems to slow down a little bit.
Oh, this is nice. This is really nice.
Is there anything else I can help you with? Obviously, you're free to stay as long as you wish, enjoy the rest of the food. Do you have any further questions or queries, etc.? Like, say, you are my guests.
Well, would you like for us to contact you once we are settled with the factory people?
Indeed, and he leans over and says, do you have your comlink on you? I'll give you my encrypted frequency.
Yeah, I fish in the pile of clothes behind me on the floor for my recently extended and customized compad.
His eyes widen a bit as you sort of hand him this like communications device with these wires and like bits of circuit board like glued onto it. And he says, "Oh well, okay," and he types in his com frequency and passes it back to you and says, "That's my private line. You'll be able to get me on it at any point you should so wish." And he turns his head towards you and he points behind one of his ear flaps, and you can see he's actually got like implanted like a tiny device there. And he says, "In my line of business, it's always important to be able to be reached by your employees. I'm available on that com frequency all the hours of the day and night. Although only use it in the emergency."
Of course, we will be using it to report our success.
Good, I like someone with optimism.
And I presume we enjoy the rest of our bath and
Indeed.
the food.
Fuck yeah, we do.
Okay, yeah, as the rest of the sort of brunch unfolds, you can also see that Crude's are like very much enjoying whatever he's just like squeezed into his eyes. He's got like a big like shit-eating grin on his face. He's got that sort of slightly like languid sort of speed to his movements. He like moves quite slowly, almost as though like he's sort of got a bit sort of limp and sort of boneless as he moves. Although it doesn't seem to be impeding him in any massive way.
So, Crew, do you need me to fly, or?
No, it's good. This should wear off in an hour or so. And I'm saying this obviously with no idea as to how long this will last. But I'm going to fly anyway, even if I am intoxicated.
I'll sit next to you.
Well, that would be lovely. Actually, come to think of it, you are really pretty, Gribbly. Have I told you that recently?
Is that because my skin's turning yellow right now?
It is. No, that wasn't the reason, but no, just Twi'leks are pretty to me.
Yes, Twi'leks are most agreeable. I have a number of them in my employ.
Oh, that doesn't make me feel uncomfortable at all.
Why would it?
That's why I said that, yes. Gosh, this water is lovely.
Well, I'll leave you to your business then. I look forward to hearing of your success in locating this factory. And as I said, make sure that they understand that anyone operating on this planet should be providing me with due respect. And a cut of their profits, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. Does that mean we can get up now?
It does.
Oh.
Yes, sir. Of course, I'm not holding you here against your will. Feel free to stay as long as you wish or leave as soon as you wish.
Oh, what? Can't we stay a bit longer? This is really nice.
You want to stay in the water?
Yeah, it's like really nice and warm and bubbly, and it's relaxing my muscles, and I've got good company, good food.
Yes, it's truly fine water.
You can snuggle up to me if you want warmth. And I sort of do this really creepy looking grin at her.
Okay,
roll
I
my
stand up.
eyes.
And I'm like, okay. So, I need my tentacles wet. Yes.
As Crude and Gribbly are having this slightly awkward exchange, Barabbas slides over next to you, Yato, and in a very low voice that only you can really hear, sort of like whispers into your ear and goes, "By the way, I feel free I should tell you that the effects of Aqua don't wear off after a couple of hours."
Yeah, sort of. I kind of guessed that. I've never seen him do that before.
Yeah, see, I don't dabble in it myself. I know a number of people who do, though, and well, it does have an effect on, I think it's the libido, I think you call it. And it generally induces a feeling of euphoria. It's not particularly harmful unless taken in large doses, but people seem to enjoy it. I don't mind selling the stuff or taking a cut of the profits, but I tend not to partake myself. You know, it's not right for someone in my position to do so.
So there's just more of this. And I point to whatever is going on between Crude and Gribbly. There's just more of this to look forward to then.
Yeah, so it's strange. It's a strange story, really. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the aqua is harvested from the razor squids near Redwater. Some of the original settlers there, who they have a slightly more primitive or low-tech view of things, they originally used it as part of a religious ceremony, a sort of coming-of-age ceremony. But since times have moved on a bit, it's become a popular recreational pastime on Coles too. Although some of the Redwater natives still use it for religious ceremonies.
So if one were to be interested in seeing one of these razor squids up close, where would one go?
Well, if someone wanted to, well, Redwater would be your best bet.
Right. And
The waters around Redwater are razor squid sort of hunting territory. That's why it's so dangerous to take a ray into the area. Most shipping into the area has to be done by spaceships or by hover vehicles of one variety or another.
Right. And how do you hunt the squids?
Well, the high-tech way of doing it is with hover vehicles and with electro harpoons. However, the Redwater natives, they have a more, I suppose, old-school way of doing it would be the way you'd term it. They normally take a party out with a number of ray riders, and they believe in hunting them with spears that they have made themselves. Like I say, it's almost a religious experience to them. They believe that if they harvest aqua from one of these beasts, they absorb its strength and its ferocity into themselves. All absolute rubbish, of course, but well, they seem to like it.
And I get this look of, I'm going to do that someday on my face.
Maybe you're thinking of adding a squid tattoo to your skin markings, Mr. Deng.
I give him a sly grin.
Well, don't let me keep you all.
Right.
You have, Barabbas, have been an absolute pleasure.
And it has been an absolute pleasure to spend time with civilized people like yourself. Unfortunately, in my line of work, a lot of the people I tend to deal with, one has to be rather more forceful in the negotiations. It's nice to spend time with civilized people and have a good conversation.
Well, I appreciate that a lot.
As I stand up in the bath, and of course I'm still fully clothed, and sort of stood there dripping. And thank you, and it was a delight to experience the waters of Mon Calamari.
Oh, not at all. Do you need some dry clothes? I can have one of my servants bring some in for you.
Please.
He clicks his fingers again, and his butler reappears out of the back room. He says, please use the service elevator to provide the young lady here with some fresh clothing. At which point the butler takes like a small tape measure out of his pocket, moves over and starts sort of like taking your measurements, Miss Cald. And it takes a few seconds. He's obviously quite skilled. He nods and says, I'll have some clothes put in the reception area by the time you've taken the elevator down there. Ah, yes, very good, thank you. And the butler makes himself scarce again.
Thank you.
Not at all, my dear. I must say, I had no idea that Twi'leks bathed fully clothed. Fascinating species, fascinating.
Yes, custom of my particular religion.
Well, very good, very good. Like I said, the clothes will be in reception. You can pick them up on your way out. And presumably you all leave and head back down in the elevator.
Aye.
Indeed.
Okay, true to Barabbas's word, as you head down and you get into reception, you can see on the semicircle desk where the green Twi'lek woman is still sitting, there are some neatly folded, fairly sort of standard looking clothes. There's certainly nothing posh in terms of like what you're used to, Gribbly, but they're dry, they've been neatly pressed, they're nicely folded, and they're just set on this semicircular reception desk. The Twi'lek woman nods at you and gestures to them as you head down.
Do you have a room I could change in?
Oh, yes, of course. You see the door over there just beyond the waiting area. I'm afraid it's a storage cupboard, but you should have some privacy in there if you wish to change.
It's fine. And I'm already off with the clothes.
Yeah, no problems. You head into this small sort of janitor's closet, effectively, it's like cleaning supplies, etc. And you quickly get changed and rejoin the other two.
Take me to a fucking desert.
You hear a sort of slightly sort of muffled laugh from the green Twi'lek woman as you say that.
No, I'm serious, guys. I need to go somewhere hot. I need to go there now.
We can turn up the heat in the ship.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, so you guys heading back to the Night Dragon?
Yeah, I say to Gribbly, well, why didn't you say, yeah, I can turn the central heating in the ship if you want for a bit.
Just to get back to normal. An hour or two should do it.
Sure, yeah, fine. I'm sure I'll like it anyway.
Okay, so you guys head across to the sort of private docking area. Obviously, Yatu knows the way, where Barabbas has arranged for your ship to be docked. You head up the ramp. As you head in, you can see that Zeph Alal, the Deveronian who accompanied you, is still sort of sat in the main sort of crew quarters area where the hollow chessboard, etc. is. He's sat there with his feet up, smoking a death stick.
Yeah, I would like fumble in my things, and I've got like a little like locker stash as well. I would sort of look for a death stick and see if I can get one lit up.
Okay, not a problem. You walk in, you start fumbling around. As you do, Zeph just like leans over and he holds out like a packet of death sticks towards you and he's like, here you go, save yourself the trouble.
Oh, thank you, kind sir.
Yeah, all right. And he sort of takes his hand back as you take one of these death sticks. He looks over at you, Yatu, and he mouths, "Is he all right?" And he gestures at like his own eyes. And he's like, "What's with the eyes?"
I do a hand motion signaling like he's had a few.
He sort of goes, "All right," and just nods and goes back to like puffing on his own death stick.
I nod.
So what have you lot been up to while I've been calling my heels on this ship?
Well, we've been hanging out in a nice hot tub, eating really fancy food, and talking with a guy called Barabbas.
Oh, it's a hard knock life, isn't it?
Well, I thought it was going to be a bit shit, to be honest, with all the fancy high life stuff, but no, it's really nice food, and I got to take some aqua, and now I'm feeling great. So, yeah, it's all good.
He looks at him and says, "What the hell's aqua?"
Well, it's apparently something you drip in your eye, and
He pulls a
it's
bit
really
of a face.
nice. Well, I was the same, you know. This guy was trying to sell me some. I said no, I prefer smoking because it's more enjoyable. But I tried it in the tub, and it's nice. Like, damn, I feel really good.
Certainly seems to have removed your inhibitions, Gribbly. I mean, Crude. Sorry.
I was going to say, my name is Crude, your name is Gribbly.
It would appear that the sheer awkwardness of the situation has got Gribbly a little bit flustered.
Hey, I only live with this name a couple of hours a week, okay?
No problems. Okay, so what's the plan, guys?
I believe we're going to fly to... hang on, I know the name of it. No, I don't. I've forgotten.
Sunador.
Thank you.
So, how are my motoring skills actually at this point, John?
Yeah, to be fair, you feel absolutely fine. When you move to the eyes of everyone else, you have a sort of slightly languid, sort of slow motion style to your move, but you feel absolutely fine. As far as you're concerned, your motor skills are absolutely brilliant, Crude.
Okay, in that case, I go over to turn the heating on for Gribbly, and I say, okay, yeah, there you go. It's going to be a bit warmer. There's a couple of vents over there if you want to stand right in front of them, although don't cover them because then that might cause a problem. And,
Actually, I think I'll sit in the co-pilot seat.
Okay, yeah, whatever. Yeah, you can navigate. You're good at that. All right, let's go.
Okay, so if you guys want to move yourself on the Roll20 map to where you're going to be in the ship as you take this voyage.
When it loads.
It's all right, I'll scoot you over to the cockpit. It's not a problem. Okay, and you guys take off. You lift off from Barabbas's private sort of docking bay, and soon you can see Coral City retreating below you, the gleaming splendour of the many buildings of this sort of circular city built on this rig rising out from this crystal clear sparkling ocean. As you turn the ship to the south towards where Sunador is located, you can see in that direction this ever-present sort of ominous looking bank of dark clouds, and occasionally there are flashes of light from within the clouds, and you hear a faint sort of thunder from that direction.
Cool, I do like thunderstorms.
Oh gosh, it's going to be cold, isn't it?
Actually, no, thunderstorms are normally quite warm, unless you're really high in the air. Oh, wait, never mind. The
Okay,
heating's on.
So, Crude, I'm going to ask you for a focus roll to fly over there, unless you're flying in a particularly fancy manner, in which case you could justify using flare, if you wish.
No, it'll probably be focus. I'm not doing anything particularly fancy.
Okay.
I'm gonna, because I'm in the co-pilot, I'm very cautious of Crude's state of mind, and I'm gonna try to sort of be just making sure he's not going to crash us, basically.
Okay, so because you have the assistance of Gribbly, you can add a +1 to that roll as well.
Okay, so that's 5 in total then.
Okay, not a problem. Despite the sort of slightly languid feelings and the sort of slight euphoria you're still getting from this aqua, a feeling that doesn't seem to have diminished at all since you've taken it, you lift the ship off, no problems. You turn it southwards and you begin skimming across the waters. Are you flying high and sort of coming in, or are you flying low across the waters? How do you want to approach?
Oh, I'd probably fly high, and that way we get a nice view.
Indeed you do, and as you head south towards Sunador, you can see that this storm bank extends for some distance beyond the city. As you continue flying, you're effectively going to have to fly into this storm bank to reach the city.
That's not a problem. I've seen loads of pilots do this before. You sort of skim over the top and then just sort of come in hard. It's a ship. It's not going to get caught by lightning or anything. It's all good.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you for a focus roll. Effectively, it's a defense roll, and I'm going to roll for the storm to see if you do get hit by any of the discharges.
You say focus again, sorry.
That's correct, unless you wish to fly in a particularly fancy manner.
Nope.
Can I still be doing the same thing, making sure he doesn't kill us all?
Yeah, you can still add the +1 to it.
Yep, so that's a 4 in total, which is a good roll, isn't it?
Yes, it is indeed, and it certainly beat my attack roll for the storm. So as you fly through, there are a few sort of close calls where there's flickers of electrical discharges. A couple of sort of lesser ones hit the ship, but your ship's shielded, as all spaceships are. So there's probably a bit of a flickering of the lights occasionally and like a loud rumble of thunder, but otherwise you're pretty much unharmed. Now, Gribbly, I presume since you're in the co-pilot seat that you'll be effectively working the scanners.
Yeah, I'm working the scanners, but also keeping an eye on just making sure Crude doesn't do something ridiculously stupid, because I don't trust him right now.
That's absolutely fine. Can I ask you to please make me a focus roll?
That's a 1.
Okay, now do you wish to stick with that roll, or are you going to do you wish to use a fate point to increase it, or if you've got an aspect that's relevant?
I don't think I have. Apart from being extremely educated, and this. Oh wait, yes, no, I do have, don't I? Because of my education, I gain a +2 on astrotech when focused. So
Yeah.
yes, I'll blow a fate point onto that and boost it to 3.
If it's a stunt, you don't have to spend a fate point on it. You can just have that +2.
Oh, okay. In which case 3.
Okay, no problems. As you're heading into this storm bank, and despite being slightly inebriated, Crude seems to be flying extremely well, although you think it's possibly more due to luck at this point than skill in the state that he's in. However, as you're heading deeper into the storm bank, you're picking up on the scanner that there is a small vessel approaching your position, like a sort of fighter craft sized vessel, and it appears to be flying in above the storm bank, but it's definitely heading towards your vessel.
Yatu Zeph, get on the guns. We might have company. Let's be prepared.
All right.
Okay, as you run to the guns, there is a hissing of static over the ship comms system and a An almost sort of emotionless female voice says, "Freighter Night Dragon, you are ordered to stand down and prepared to be boarded."
What? No, go away, piss off.
And let me handle
immediately
this.
Sort of already sort of cutting the button, or not cutting the button, sorry, cutting the screen or whatever, just to get her to piss off.
Okay, as Crude says that and like cuts the comms, Gribbly, on the, because you've still got the scanners working, you register what appeared to be a dozen or more small objects being launched from the fighter towards your ship.
Missiles!
Oddly enough, as you're sort of looking at the
Whoa!
scanner, they don't appear to be showing any sort of propulsion, and they don't appear to be shaped like missiles. They're almost like small metal spheres.
Oh, these could be some kind of boarding pod. We need to shoot them down and evade.
Okay, Yatu, are you going to attempt to shoot these strange sort of... They're quite small. They're almost like bowling ball-sized metal spheres that have been launched at you.
I most certainly am.
Okay, that sounds like it's going to be a force-based roll to me. So if you want to make that roll, and I'll make a defense roll for the spheres.
Oh boy.
Okay, so currently I'm beating you by 4. However, I'm going to say you can add 1 to your roll, because obviously you're being assisted by Zeph on the other gun.
Okay. So we're at 1. I don't know that I have the aspects to do this. I could see a +2. But
Don't forget, if you have an aspect, you could also spend a fate point to re-roll rather than take a +1.
oh yeah, right. I forgot that. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, because my roll was shit. Yeah, I'm gonna invoke Haters Gonna Hate, because this is most certainly a hater.
That's fine. So spend 1 of your fate points, and if you wish to re-roll, you can do.
I'll include the +1 from Zeph into this.
Okay. Okay, so you've got a 4. I'm going to spend 1 of my fate points, because these buzz droids are designed specifically to attack ships, to add a +2 to my roll. Do you wish to spend anything else, Yatu?
Ooh, I can't invoke the same aspect twice, right?
No.
Right.
However, you are tech savvy, remember?
Yeah, I guess, because it's like drones are the equivalent.
Indeed, if you've seen the sort of prequels, you know when they launch the sort of small droids that like cut into ships.
Those things that sort of like scamper on top of like ships.
That's it, buzz droids. Effectively, you launch them, they unfold out of these small spheres, and they're designed to like cut into and like incapacitate ships.
Yeah, right. Okay, so that sounds bad. Yeah, so yeah, being tech savvy, I would guess at their movements a bit at least. So I'll add +2 for that, and spend my last fate point.
Okay, so you've equaled my roll. You're able to destroy all but a handful of these spheres. Only about 3 of them survive to make it into contact with your hull. As they do, Gribbly, you see on the scanners these like 3 spheres effectively seem to like magnetize themselves to your hull. Then they unfold, and these are almost like spider-like droids equipped with like circular cutting saws and like electro welders unfold from these 3 spheres, and they begin like cutting into the hull.
Okay, is it possible for me to, like, I don't know, dig out the hole or something and kill them that way?
You could certainly give it a go. What sort of approach are you suggesting?
Run the power conduits through the thing on the ship. You said it was shielded, so if I pump a load of, reverse the charge or something, and see if that affects the electric field and zaps them.
Okay, that sounds like an intellect roll for me. So I'll keep the same defense roll I did previously. So if you just want to make your intellect roll.
Okay, and because of my education, +2 on astrotech. Oh, but focus only. So okay, right, I got it. Okay, so that's a 3.
Okay, so I'm going to say that you managed to electrify the hull, and it does indeed destroy another one of these buzz droids. However, there's still 2 on the hull, and you can see on the scanner as they're sort of like cutting into the hull, and they're obviously trying to, you would know from your sort of education, Gribbly, that they're basically programmed to like seek out the vital systems of ships and disable them. So I'm going to ask one of you now. It's up to you who does it. I'd suggest potentially Crude, because obviously you're the pilot. I'm going to ask someone to make a defense roll for the ship. It's up to you. It's up to you what approach you want to justify as using for that, depending on how you're defending the ship. And it'll be against the buzz droid's attack roll.
Okay, well, surely Crew would have at least a bit of knowledge about these kinds of droids, or at least something that would be able to damage certain parts of the ship anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, they are fairly standard droids. Obviously, they're vulnerable to the sort of normal sort of things that droids are. I mean, Gribbly had the right idea with like sending an electrical charge through the hull. It's probably only due to the fact that these things are like specifically designed to like grapple onto ships and cope with that sort of stuff that enabled them to, most of them, to survive it.
Okay. In that case, can I roll a focus, considering I would have spotted them, I'd know what they were doing, and I'd be able to communicate and say, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, we need to make sure this is down or this is at full capacity or whatever.
That's fine. I will tell you they're at quite a sort of high plus for their attack roll, because they are specifically designed to like do this. This is like their reason for existing. So I'm going to make their attack roll now, and if you want to make your defense roll. Okay, yeah, not a problem. Would you like to narrate how you dispatch the remaining 2 buzz droids?
Yeah, okay. So what I'd probably done is directed the charge that Gribbly had done in order to concentrate it more on where they were. So essentially it would cause them to just completely disable.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. You concentrate the electric charge that Gribbly began running through the hull. There's only 2 of them remaining. Most of them were destroyed by Yato and Zeph on the guns. Gribbly took out another one, and by concentrating the electrical discharges through the hull, you're able to dispatch the other 2, and you watch on the scanners, Gribbly, as these 2 now inert droids fall off your ship down several hundred feet into the water, and there's a slight sort of like splashing sound as they drop into the ocean.
She's going to have to do better than that to get past me.
Let's take her out.
We don't know where she is.
You notice, Gribbly, on the scanners that, obviously having seen you've dispatched the buzz droids, the fighter is breaking away and pulling up, sort of heading away from you. You've still got time to like take a shot or do whatever, but obviously whoever's piloting the fighter craft has seen that you've quite easily dispatched these buzz droids and has decided not to mess any further.
Alright, I'm going to flip the communicator back on. What? You're not going to meet us on the ground? Come on!
The female voice on the comm system says, I don't see any reason to engage you on the ground where you have the superiority of numbers. That would be extremely foolish.
We've got superiority in the air as well.
That remains to be seen.
Good luck with that, and I flip it back off.
Okay. And you continue into the storm, presumably, Crew.
I do, yes.
Okay, as you approach Sunador, it's of similar size to Coral City. However, whereas Coral City had all these beautiful touristy style buildings, there's a more industrial feel to Sunador. You can see a bewildering array of what look to be scientific apparatus sprouting from the buildings, dotted around the edge of the city. With your education, Gribbly, you'd be able to identify that most of these are sort of weather station style apparatus. You can also see there is like a central sort of landing bay, effectively.
Wow, these guys are paranoid about the weather, aren't they?
Well, it must happen really regularly.
I gather it's pretty much permanent, which kind of raises into question why you'd need to predict it, so they must be studying it and trying to use it for something.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's lightning, electricity. They probably harness it somehow.
I would imagine so, yes.
As you're having this conversation, there's a bung, bung from the comms system. It would appear that there's a sort of wide area broadcast coming through on all frequencies.
Oh, we should switch that back on, shouldn't we?
I reluctantly switch it back on.
Okay, you switch it back on. You see a sort of flickering picture appear. Obviously, there's some sort of electrical interference with the signal, and you can just about make out the familiar shape of an Imperial Customs Bureau officer. He says, due to the recent outbreak of Lakari beetles on many worlds throughout this sector, the ICB has been given emergency powers to cope with this crisis. As such, we will be performing stop and search on all vessels moving into and out of the planets of this sector. Anyone refusing to a stop and search demand will be assumed to be smugglers or worse and will be treated accordingly. We take these actions for the good of the public and to halt the spread of this plague. This has been an announcement on behalf of the Imperial Customs Bureau for the Empire. And then it ends.
Yeah, I basically just start mouthing the speech since I've heard it once before, and obviously I get like bits wrong, but I'm just sort of being totally tongue-in-cheek with it.
No problems. And presumably you bring the ship into land on the landing bay, Crude.
Well, yes, of course.
Okay, not a problem. You sat down. You can see that it's raining quite heavily here. There's a lot of people wearing sort of long, like, leather dusters and goggles to protect themselves against the rain. They're sort of moving about, refueling other ships. They're effectively your standard sort of landing crew style people.
I don't suppose anywhere at all, anywhere in this hold, you have an umbrella.
We have a couple of Enviro cloaks.
Yeah. We've got like cloaks suited for rain, but no umbrellas. They're useless in the wind.
As you're sort of... sorry, go ahead, Gribbly, sorry.
No, it's fine. I'll just take a cloak. Over to you.
Okay, Yato, I presume you're still sat in the sort of gun turret?
Yeah, I stayed there after we had the fight to like overwatch.
Okay, as you're sort of sat in the gun turret, obviously you can see what's going on around the ship. As you're landing, like the landing feet coming down, there's like a slight as the Night Dragon lands, crews of expertly touching it down with nary a bump. You can see what appears to be a man wearing a grey uniform with what appeared to be approximately half a dozen stormtroopers behind him. He's holding a clipboard and he's leading this squad towards where your ship has just landed.
Not already. What have we got anything illicit on board?
I don't think so.
Did we sell the food yet?
No, but that's not illegal.
But it is stolen.
Well, I think the only thing they're gonna be interested in, if they get that far into the hold, is the corpse that we have in there, and the corpses of some Lokari beetles.
Oh, and some Imperial speeder bikes.
As you're having this discussion, there's a wrap on the outside of the sort of like the landing bay, the door of your ship, effectively, and you hear a slightly muffled voice saying, "Imperial Customs Bureau, open up."
Sorry, problem on the hydraulics. It got struck in the storm. Give us 5 minutes or so to fix it. What the fuck are we gonna do?
I have a half a mind to just take one of the speeders and ram these guys.
That's a really cool idea. We got 3 speeders. Why don't we suit up and drive through them?
Right out. No.
See, that sounds like a dangerous.
Crude, any ideas?
That sounds like a dangerously ambitious thing to do to me.
Okay, so we're gonna do the Helm's Deep of Sunador, I guess.
Have yourself
Right.
a fate point.
Yeah. Right, so I presume Crude is no longer in the cockpit either.
No, I would have sort of semi-staggered out by then.
So we've got 3 speeder bikes and there's 3 of us plus Zeph to shoot from behind. Let's just load up the cargo hold, open the ramp, and go full throttle.
Yeah, full throttle. I like that. That's nice.
Okay, no problems. You guys get yourself. Are you taking like a speeder bike each, effectively?
Aye.
Zeph can ride with me unless he's staying behind.
He looks at you and he's like, "Well, I don't mind coming along."
To be fair, there's probably going to be blaster fire exchange between us and stormtroopers. So if you're not into that, then you may stay.
He just sort of laughs. He takes his blaster pistol from the holster on his leg and he like spins it around in one hand and hops on the speeder bike behind you.
Right then.
Okay, crew, you jump on a speeder bike. Your Lothcat Kyber jumps up on the speeder bike with you.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'd obviously just go myself.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, because obviously those stormtroopers are going to shoot at you as you come like racing out of the ship. So effectively what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an attack roll for them, and I'm going to ask you guys to make a defense roll using haste, because obviously you're trying to get quickly out of range of their blasters and you're just trying to ride out sort of guns blazing style. So I'll make their attack roll.
Could I trigger my aspect here? Because of my highborn status, I am used to acting without consequence.
So are you trying to suggest a compel to get a fate point there?
Well, I was hoping to trade one and get some kind of bonus because my haste is rubbish. But
Well, what you can do is you can make the roll first, and then if your roll's not good enough, you can then spend the fate point. So I'll make their attack roll, which isn't exactly stunning. However, since they are trained stormtroopers, I'll spend my second fate point to add a +2 to that. So my attack roll is 3. So if you guys want to make your haste rolls. So we just need crude. Okay, so crude and Yatu, you are absolutely fine. At the moment, I am beating you by 3, Gribbly. So if you did want to spend a fate point for your aspect, you could either add +2, which wouldn't be enough, or you could re-roll it entirely.
Okay, I'll go for a reroll on that fate point then and see what comes up.
Okay.
Odds aren't in my favour. Oh no, it's the same.
Okay, so Gribbly, you will take 3 stress of damage.
I'm usually so good at getting the other shot instead of myself.
So with that, you could obviously just like cross off like 3 of your 1 point stress boxes, and that would soak that. So you're still going. You're absolutely fine, but obviously you've taken some damage. Now at the start of the next encounter, they will refresh. So you'll have just taken like a bit of light scalding and maybe like a few scorch marks.
Yeah, that's what I've done.
Okay, so as you guys race out on these speeder bikes, there's cries of alarm from the Imperial officer, the Imperial Customs Bureau officer who's leading the Stormtroopers. The Stormtroopers are sort of thrown slightly into disarray because you guys just like plough through the middle of them on these 3 speeder bikes. They manage to get themselves together, snap off blaster shots in your direction as you're heading past them. One of the blaster shots hits you in the shoulder, Gribbly. You're knocked forward on your bike and you wobble dangerously for a few moments, but you manage to right yourself. There's a slight sort of pain in your shoulder, but you think it's nothing serious. And then the 3 of you are like, and you're past them, racing through the industrial streets of Sunador. What's the plan now, guys? You can obviously hear the shouts of the Stormtroopers behind you, but they're on foot. You're on speeder bikes. They've got no chance of catching you.
Yeah, I was going to say, as soon as I hear them sort of trudging towards us, I would just simply speed off in the first direction I would think would be feasible.
Slightly more worrying to you, Crude, is as you sort of glance backwards, as you sort of hear them behind you, is you see the Stormtroopers heading up onto your ship.
In that case, I don't speed off. I sort of try and pivot the speed biker around, almost as if I'm going to speed up onto the ship with the speeder bike. And then I think, oh wait, what am I doing? I sort of head off and go, no, that's my ship. Get off my ship.
It's okay, we'll steal it back later.
Okay, so you guys are racing away, and then obviously Gribbly, you've sort of wobbled, but you managed to get yourself upright again. Yatu, you're fine. Then you hear like Crowd, like, no, that's my ship, and you see like Crowd like wheeling his speeder bike round.
It's all right, we'll steal it back.
It's my baby.
You can see the exit ramp going up on the ship.
Okay, how close am I to it? Because if I'm close enough, I'm going to try and attempt to dive through.
Basically, it would come down to a haste roll. You're feasibly close enough, but you'd be basically racing to see whether you can gun the speeder bike enough to get there quicker than they can raise this ramp.
Okay, I'll try. Why not?
Go for it. Make a haste roll. You will need at least a 3 on the roll.
No, I do not.
Okay, so you gun the speeder bike as much as you can, racing back towards the Night Dragon. However, when you're about sort of 50 yards away, there's a as the ramp closes on the ship.
Ah! And then I sort of kick the ramp and start like putting up V signs and stuff at them.
Okay, not a problem. You start doing that. As you're doing that, you happen to glance upwards and you notice in the sort of gun turret on the top of the ship, you notice a stormtrooper climbing into the gun turret.
Get the fuck out of there! That's not yours to play with! And I actually get out my gun.
Okay, so whilst this is going on, what are Gribbly and Yatu doing?
Left.
Fair. Yatu?
Shit.
We need an Imperial ship to get out of this place anyway.
Now, obviously, Yatu, you've used these guns many a time. You know that although it would be difficult to like hit a person using these guns, if they did, it would pack a serious wallop.
Yeah, just basically like instantly vaporized is my estimation. So we're in an industrial area. Is there people around?
There are people around. They're all sort of clad in these like long sort of overcoats and these hoods against this rain that's falling. You notice that as the rain falls, it hisses ever so slightly, like it's slightly acidic, not enough to cause you actual damage, but enough so that like if you're exposed to it for a long period of time, it'll be quite uncomfortable. that you'd presume that's why people are wearing these big covering overcoats, and obviously the industry sort of like pumping these fumes and chemicals up into the storm clouds.
John, would I be able to invoke an aspect at this point?
What are you suggesting?
I am suggesting, since my Lothcat is never too far away and is always getting into trouble, would I be able to invoke that my Lothcat has become jumpy by the presence of these stormtroopers and actually jumps onto the one in the turret?
Now, it wouldn't actually be able to get into the turret because the turret is like closed over.
Okay. In that case, would it be able to start causing mayhem with the other stormtroopers if they're wandering around in the main body?
They all appear to have headed onto the Night Dragon, so it'd have to have some way of getting on the ship.
That's what I meant, sorry. So the Lothcat would still be on the ship.
Okay, so I heard John say taking with, and I heard you say going without the Lothcat, so you're actually at cross purposes there, just so you both know.
Yeah, effectively the Lothcat wouldn't be able to get onto the ship because obviously it's a sealed ship.
Okay, never mind.
Okay, as you're stood there, Crude, there's a as the the gun turret of your own ship swivels around to point in your direction. You hear the unmistakable and familiar sound of like the guns charging up.
Okay, I dive out of the way.
Okay, make me a haste roll. Okay, you throw yourself to one side as there's a loud and the turret guns of the Night Dragon fire and effectively just blows a huge chunk out of the spot where you were standing a few moments before.
What is your problem?
You can see the guns moving around to sort of like track your new position.
Come and face us like proper men, you cowards.
Okay, we know Gribbly's got while the going's good. What's Yatu doing?
Hoping that we had an actual plan. Is there like an air traffic control tower or something?
You can see a large number of tall buildings which could conceivably be like air traffic control. Obviously, you don't know exactly which building it would be because you've not been here before, but feasibly, yeah. I mean, if you want to spend a fate point to like introduce a plot detail, I'll say that you can find an air traffic control building.
Actually, what I could do is, well, if you're okay with that, because we've been having the storm on the horizon.
Yeah.
If I use my fate point, can I say that we're just about to go? Like the sirens start like screaming, and there's a tsunami coming in. That's gonna like wipe over the entire city, which is like fairly a regular occurrence here, but
yeah, that's fine if you want to spend your fate point for that.
Yep, I'll do so.
Okay, so as this scene's unfolding, you both hear this boop, 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 boop alarm ringing out from one of these tall tower-like buildings, and you hear some speakers on it with this voice blaring out say, "We have a level 5 wavefront incoming. All official personnel to report to the designated shelter areas." Boop, boop. Repeat, we have a level 5 wavefront incoming. All official personnel and non-essential personnel to report to shelters. And as you look out sort of beyond the city, across the sea, you see this huge wave rolling towards Sunador.
And what I do is I'm just going to sort of like circle around and keep yelling at Crude, Crude, we need to go. Presuming that he can hear
But
anything from the sirens.
But my ship! They've got my ship!
We'll get it back.
But it'll be submerged. It won't take that wave. Oh, my head. This isn't what I wanted from this damn aqua.
And indeed, as you say, oh, my ship wouldn't take that wave, you notice the landing gear on the Night Dragon starts to retract and it starts to lift off.
Oh, well, fuck these guys. And I just like put a middle finger up and then start walking away towards Yatu.
Okay, obviously you've still got your speeder bike, so you can use that if you wish.
Yes, I would. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we do is we ride the wave, or at least away from it.
So as you got, obviously Gribbly's well out of range of the wave by now. As you two turn and start racing inland, for want of a better term, into Sunador, trying to put a few buildings and a bit of sort of shelter between you and the wave, this huge wavefront begins to roll across the outskirts of Sunador, and I'm going to ask Yatu and Crude, can you both please make me a haste roll? It's a difficulty 4 roll, because you're effectively trying to outrace a tidal wave. Okay, so are you sticking with your current role, Yatu?
I have no fate points or stunts to work my magic, so yeah.
Okay, so Crude, you're okay. You're racing. You're only slightly ahead of this huge tidal wave. It's so near that you can see like debris that's caught up in it, and you can hear the roaring of these terribly powerful waters behind you rushing towards you like some grim harbinger of death. Then as you look back, you can see that Yatu appears to have like fallen behind. You can see the waves are literally just about to like roll over him. You've probably got a few seconds to decide what to do, if anything, Crude. It's obvious that like Yatu, as he's going at the minute, isn't going to like escape this wave.
Okay, right, I'm going to invoke my aspect. Luckiest pilot this side of the outer rim. I'm going to twist the throttle to absolute maximum and try and skid around in order to go back for him and then just speed off.
Okay, can you make me a flare roll, please? Because obviously this is quite a sort of high action stunt that you're pulling off here. Splendid. Okay, you screech around and effectively cut across where Yatu is. And as you're sort of passing in front of him, you think for a few moments, oh, I'm not going to be able to get Yatu on the back of my speeder bike. When Zeph, who's been like sat on the back of Yatu's bike, basically like throws Yatu onto the back of your speeder bike, Crude, and he starts getting ready to try and like jump on himself onto the back of your speeder bike. But just as he's about getting ready to jump, this wave just engulfs the speeder bike that he's on, and both the speeder bike and Zeph disappear under this powerful wave. You gun your bike, Crude, and zip ahead of the wave. Zeph and the speeder bike he was on disappear from view, subsumed by this onrushing torrent of water. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where we're going to leave the session for this evening.
Oh.
Thank you very much for playing, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Zeph.
Okay, so I'll discuss the advancement, etc., after we finish the broadcast. So that's been session 8 of our Heart of Darkness campaign, the first session using the Fate system. So I'm going to end the broadcast shortly. I'm obviously happy to chat for a while afterwards, and we'll sort out character advancement, etc. So until we see you next time, take care, and we shall hopefully see you for the next session.